So I've been lucky enough to get my hands on a PlayStation Vita. This is the 2000 model. It's the blue, which is only available in Japan. And that's thanks to Emily at JPFANS. There'll be more about JPFANS coming up in this video. Since the explosion of the retro handheld scene, I thought, why don't I get an old PSP and have a play around and hack it and see if I can turn this PSP into a retro handheld. Here's how I got on. So I've completely factory reset this PlayStation Vita and we are gonna modify it. Now, thanks to some absolute geniuses, we're gonna be using the Henlo hack, and this is completely easy because you can do it all on the device itself. So we're gonna head over to the browser and just launch that up. We're gonna head over to jailbreakpsp2.dev and we're just gonna hit enter. And then you're gonna get this little pop-up which looks quite a lot like the PlayStation Vita UI, and it's gonna say unlock my Vita, and we're just gonna do that. We'll press unlock, and we're gonna let it do its thing. Okay, so that only takes a couple of seconds, so now we're gonna come down to, and we're gonna install Henkaku. So we're gonna just press X on that, and then we're also gonna install Vita Deploy. There we go, and then we're gonna exit out of that. So now we're gonna go to the normal settings application. This is the green little briefcase looking thing, toolbox I suppose it is, and then you'll have this option for Henkaku settings. We're gonna open that up. We're gonna enable unsafe homebrew, and then we're gonna just close out of this menu. So now we've enabled the unsafe homebrew, we're gonna go down to Vita Deploy. We're gonna open that up. We're gonna press install a different OS, and at the top, this little quick 3.65 install, we're just gonna run that. So what this is gonna do is this is gonna downgrade the firmware to 3.65, and then it's going to install a custom version on top of that. So before we install this firmware, this Vita was provided to me free of charge from JPFANS. They are the sponsor of this video. Let's find out more. So whilst that's doing, I just want to say again a huge shout out to JPFANS, the sponsor of this video. They have provided me with the PS Vita free of charge, and for that I am eternally grateful. JPFANS is a proxy website. That means you can import goods from Japan to wherever you are in the world. If you use my promo link in the description below, then you can get yourself up to $86 worth of shipping coupons, and it's much cheaper than buying domestically in a lot of cases. And they don't just do consoles, you can get Japanese games, you can get Pokemon cards, you can get figures from your favorite anime, you can get clothes, you can get absolutely all sorts. So make sure you use my promo link in the description below to get yourself some money off. And back to the video. And we're back. So now we're just going to press X to install the firmware. So it's going to make you wait for a few seconds, so you can just leave it to run. It's basically just a warranty and disclaimer. So it's going to ask you, do you want to accept? Or you can press the R button if you change your mind, but you're not going to change your mind because why are you here? So we're just going to press X and we're going to let it do its thing. So now we are back, and what we're going to do is we're going to head over to Vita Deploy. Because what we're going to need to do now is actually download a installer. So we're going to go down to the app downloader, and we're looking for is this ITLS installer, and then we're going to just press download the selected apps. So once that's done, we're going to exit this, and we should have the app. There it is, ITLS Enzo. We're going to open it up, and then we're just going to install the full ITLS package, and then we're going to give that a moment to install. So now that's all installed, so what we're going to need to do is if we head back to our settings and then go to Henkaku settings, because we're now running the custom firmware, we're going to need to basically enable some settings. So we've got version spoofing enabled and PSN spoofing enabled, that's fine. But for the spoof version, we're going to make sure this is set to whatever the latest version is. At time of recording, it's 3.74. Can't imagine there's going to be many updates to the PlayStation Vita, but you never know. And then we'll close out of this, and then that's that set. So if you remember back to the days of the PS Vita, then you'll be well aware that the internal memory, which I do have in here, was rather expensive. And if you try and buy a second-hand one of these, it is still rather expensive. So what I've got here, this is the SD2Vita Pro. So this allows me to basically put a micro SD card in here, and then I'm going to pop this into the game card. And this is basically going to act as an SD card. So with that, we can basically use it as a normal SD card rather than Sony's irritating proprietary one. So now that's in there, we're going to head back to Vita Deploy. And then if we scroll down to miscellaneous, so first we want to format the SD card just to make sure that it's the correct file system. So the target is SD2Vita, which is plugged in. file system, we're just going to leave it on TextFAT, and then we'll just format that. There we go. Should only take a few seconds. So now what we're going to do is we'll reboot. So we're going to go back here and we're just going to reboot the system. We're going to head down to Vita Deploy. We're going to go to App Downloader. So we're going to get a few apps whilst we're here. We're going to get Vita Shell. Vita Shell is like a file manager that will allow us to explore, copy, and delete files from the internal system. We're going to get VitaDB Downloader, which will be our homebrew. We're going to get Adrenaline, which is the custom PSP firmware, allows us to play PSP games. We're going to get PKGJ. This will allow us to get our Vita games. I can't show you this in use, but all you need to do is install it, and it's basically a big library of stuff you can download. Obviously, if you want things like a save data restorer or a themes manager, then you can get those as well. So I'm going to download those apps. So now we've formatted that memory card, we need to actually use it as external storage. So we're going to go to Settings again. We're looking for Devices and Storage Devices. So we want to enable the YAMT driver. So once that driver is enabled, we are going to press and hold our power button, and we're just going to turn the device off and then on again. So when this reboots, it's going to allow us to properly mount and explore the SD card we've got inside the game card storage. So now we've got those apps, we're going to head over to Vita Shell. This is basically a file manager which allows us to explore the contents. So you can see we've got loads of different mounts and partitions, but the only two we're concerned about is this UX0 and UMA0. So firstly, we're going to go into UX0, we're going to press our triangle button. We're going to come down, make sure you're hovering over app and then you press triangle. You can mark all, and then we're going to copy all those. We're going to back out, we're going to go to UMA0, so this is actually our SD card we've got in here, and then we're just going to paste it. So if you've already got stuff on your Vita, then this can take a moment. It's going to copy all your games, your save data, or anything like that. But as this is a fresh install for me, it shouldn't take long at all. Okay, now that's done, we're going to back out of Vita Shell, because what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to settings and we're going to swap our mounted drives. So when we boot the Vita, it's going to think that our internal storage, or our memory card storage slot here, is actually this one. So we'll go down to devices again, storage devices, and then we'll just set the UX0 to SD2Vita and the UMA0 to default. We'll just swap them around, and then we're going to power it off and power it back on again, just to remount all the storage devices. Okay, so now we've got the custom firmware installed, our settings are all enabled, and we've set up our SD card. Now, let's have a look at some homebrew. So if we come down to VitaDB Downloader, this is where we're going to get our homebrew apps. So the first time you boot it, it's going to install some extra little libraries and things that it needs. Okay, so once we've managed to load into VitaDB, what we're going to do is we are going to download EMU4 Vita++. So it does look like it was updated a couple of weeks ago, so it does still seem to be in active development. Now, it's quite a chunky VPK. I'm going to download this on the device itself. However, if you want to get it up and running faster, you can plug this into a USB and transfer it over using your internal file storage, or you can do it via FTP, which I'll show you how to do shortly when we set up the PSP stuff. But for now, I'm just going to download it from here. So I'm just going to press my circle button and I'm going to let it run. So that'll take a few minutes, and once it's installed, I'm just going to close out of this, and then I'm going to go to EMU4 Vita++. So we're going to open it up. So we have some systems here. So we have some systems here. So the first thing I'm going to do is if we press our start button, we can actually toggle some of these systems off. So I'm just going to clear most of these out, because the only ones I really want are your traditional classics, your NES, your Mega Drive, your SNES. Get rid of the Neo Geo Pocket, the WonderSwan Color, and we'll just leave it on that for now. Just a nice standard library. So if I press start again, oh, it's crashed. So we'll try and load that up again, and there we go. So we've only got the ones we selected. So if we go to NES to start with, it's going to give us a couple of options. So we'll start with FCEUMM. So I'm only going to set a couple of these up because most of them, the setup is quite straightforward, and a lot of it you can do yourself. So I am missing a BIOS file, so we'll have to rectify that. So I'm going to log into my Retro Achievements account because I love me some Retro Achievements. There we go. I'm going to enable Hardcore mode, which disables cheats and save states and things like that. You don't have to do that if you like, that's entirely to you. And I like having it on the top left. So now we've logged into my Retro Achievements, let's look at some of the other settings. So we have our browser. This is basically our file browser. So we are going to need to add some games. I'll show you how to do that shortly. For graphics, we don't have a ton of graphical settings, but you can change your display size, your game resolution. You can change your display size, your aspect ratio. I think I'll leave it by game resolution because if you do it by device screen, it might look a little bit stretched. We can add a shader if you like. Personally, I'm not a massive user of shaders, but if you wanted like an LCD screen, for example, you can enable that here. I won't do any graphic smoothing. I'll leave the overlay as is. You can set it so it looks like a TV or add some scan lines to it. I'm not going to bother with any of that. Now, for controls, they should be set pretty much as you'd expect, but you can just press your start button and you can test them out. So the buttons do seem fine. Obviously, if you ever want to change them, then what you can do is you can select and then you can just specify which button you want to correspond to the relevant control. So now we're going to exit out of this and we're going to add some games. So I've already got some games. Obviously, I can't tell you where to get them, but they're easy enough to find online. So we're going to close out of this. We're going to head over to Vita Shell. Now, there's two ways you can connect your device to your computer with Vita Shell. You can do, if you press your start button, you can use USB or FTP. USB, quite simply, you just connect it to your PC via USB, and then press select and it'll put it into a USB mode. I'm going to use FTP. FTP is File Transfer Protocol. Basically, this is a way for us to transfer files wirelessly, and it's my preferred way of doing it. So in order to do this, you're going to need an app called FileZilla, which is my preferred FTP client of choice. So now that's set, I'm going to press select, and you'll see here, the FTP server is now running at that IP address. So now I'm going to jump over to my computer, and I'm going to connect to this. Okay, so I'm over here on my computer, so I'm just going to load up FileZilla. And then all I'm going to do is, in this host, I'll put in the IP address, which is 1.2.168.1.103. That's just the device's address on my local network. And then for port, that is the numbers after the colon. So 1337. I'm going to hit quick connect. So now we can see our file browser. The exact same as you could see it on the app itself. So we're going to go to UXO. And in there, I'm going to make a folder. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a directory. I'll call this one ROMs. There we are. And then in here, I'll make just a couple of directories. I'll make an NES one. I'll make an SNES one. I'll do a PSX one. Whatever devices you want to emulate, you can just add whichever folders you want. So on my ROMs folder, which is on my network drive, and then what I'll do is I'll just grab a couple of games. So for Game Boy, I'm going to get Amazing Tater, drag that straight in there, and you can see it's only a small file, and that's transferred straight over to my device. We'll get just a couple of random ones. So now we're back on a device, I can just press X, and that will close the FTP connection. And then if I go to UXO, and then you can see there's my ROMs folder that I made. I've got all my folders. I only copied it. I didn't copy games for all of them, but you can see that the ones I did, I've got Earthbound, I've got Duke Nukem, I've got Amazing Tater. So we're going to close out of this, and let's go back to EMU for Vita. So now in here, if we open up NES, for example, and we select FCEUMM, it's going to load up, and then we're going to find that ROMs folder, and then we're going to boot into the game. And there we go, I've got my retro achievements pop up there. Now obviously whilst I'm in-game, I can use my PlayStation button for hotkey. So if I hold the PlayStation button, that enables my hotkey. And then if I use my right trigger, I can speed the game up and up to 3 times, and then I can skip through some of this intro cutscene. And then if I hold it and then press L2, I can slow it back down in increments of 0.2. So here we are in the game. So hopefully if I get to a point where I can get outside and we can see, oh no, my lamp's going to attack me. But if you press the PlayStation button and press your X button, it will close out of the game. So if we go over to our hotkeys, you can see we have hotkeys there. So if you can save state, you can lower state, speed up and down, and you can rewind the game as well. So that is very, very simple how to do retro game emulation. Now let's look at PSP. We're going to open up Adrenaline. It will close that automatically because I didn't close it properly. So it's going to come up saying it needs to download the firmware. So we're just going to press X and we're going to let it download the firmware. So this will take a couple of minutes and then we'll be back shortly. So once it's downloaded, we're going to open it back up. And then we're going to install that firmware. Once that's all installed, you're going to get this little message here. So we're going to press X and this should boot into the XMB. And there we go. We're going to do our initial PSP setup like we would have done back in 2005, whenever it came out. Obviously, this is a Japanese edition, thanks again to JPFANS. So I'm going to have to scroll up and find my time zone. So here we are in Adrenaline. So this is just the PSP firmware. I'm sure it's bringing back and scratching a lot of that nostalgic itch that you have. Okay, so for some reason the PSP HomeBrew Browser just did not want to play ball. However, instead, if you go back to VitaDB and you press your left bumper, your left trigger, you're going to get this menu. And this is just your PSP HomeBrew. So you can download all sorts of wonderful homebrew apps for your PSP from here. Okay, just finally, if you want to add games for Adrenaline, if you close out, and then if you go back over to Vita Shell. So once you're back in Vita Shell, if you go to UXO, and then come down to PSP Emu. Now in PSP, you'll see this game file. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go back up a level, and I'm going to make an ISO file. So you'll see this PSP file. Now, if your game is an e-boot format, for example, if it's like an old PS1 game, you want to put it in a folder inside this game folder. However, if it's an ISO file, we're going to create a folder in here. We're going to press our triangle button, and we're going to go to New Folder. I'm going to call this one ISO, all capitals. There we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press select to enable my FTP server. Obviously, if you're using USB, plug it in, press select, and then I'm going to copy over a game to this folder. So we have our ISO folder that we've just made and our PSP folder. Now for our ISOs, we're just going to pop them in here, and you can just pop them at the root level as you like. If you have a PBP file, it's a little bit more involved. We're going to go to the PSP folder. We're going to go to the game folder. Ignore that ISO folder. That's one I made earlier in the wrong place. In here, you're going to make a folder with the title ID of the game. That's the game's unique ID. Wherever you got it from, it will normally tell you. And then inside that folder, you'll put your PBP file, and then you'll rename that file to eboot.pbp. Has to be all caps, I believe. And then once you've done that, you should be able to see it inside Adrenaline. So I'm going to copy a game over to the ISO folder, and then we're going to have a look what that looks like inside Adrenaline. Okay, so now we can see I've got Tekken 6 in my ISO folder. So let's back out, and then let's load up Adrenaline. So we're just going to go down to our memory stick, and then open it up, and there we are, Tekken 6. Now let's boot it up and see if it runs. So we've booted up into Tekken 6, and then it runs absolutely flawlessly. And speaking of flawless, I've just battered Hihachi. So there we are, I have been able to turn this PS Vita Japanese exclusive into a retro handheld. Obviously, I can also play my PS Vita games on here. I can play all sorts. Primarily, I'll be playing Vita, PSP, and occasionally dipping into those classics. If you like this video, I would appreciate a like and subscribe. If you've got any questions about modding your PS Vita in the year of our Lord 2026, please drop a comment down below. Huge thank you again to JPFANS for providing me with the device. Don't forget you can use my link in the description to get $86 of shipping coupons, and it also helps the channel. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.